It was the year the anti-hero finally died. Instead, 2017's most interesting TV shows gave us complicated, nuanced and often surprising takes on masculinity. Gone were the brooding loners of cable television's golden age. In their place came stories that dared to ask what makes a man. The answer, according to entertainingly over-the-top gothic drama Taboo, was grunting, striding, occasional nakedness and the ability to wear a tall hat extremely well. On the surface, Tom Hardy's portrayal of James Delaney, adventurer turned would-be nemesis of the East India Company, is the ultimate anti-hero, a man so in touch with his masculine side that it's almost a mark of restraint that, after ripping out a man's heart, he stops short of devouring it. Yet a funny thing about Hardy's performance was that it was so filled with brooding and torment that it became as much a commentary on uber masculinity as a depiction of it. Like the late Oliver Reed, with whom he shares both a fondness for scenery chewing and a surprising vulnerability, Hardy's knowing portrayal of masculinity seems to ask, will you come with me no matter what I do? One of the things about creating a hero of any sort is that they are occasionally ridiculous, says Stephen Knight, creator of Taboo and the similarly OTT Peaky Blinders. For all the weirdness, there are elements of James Delaney that are recognizable, and that's what audiences respond to. Back in January, Hardy simply stated, is he an anti-hero? I don't think so. He's heinous and opportunistic, but he is not just a standard bad boy. I wanted to go further than that. If Delaney stands on one side of the spectrum, at the other you find Vincent Martino, phenomenal lead of David Simon's The Deuce. As played by James Franco, Vince is the antithesis of the typical HBO anti-hero, a down-on-his luck scrabbler who really wants little more than a nice apartment, the chance to run his bar free of hassle, and a woman who likes him for who he is and not what he might give her. Megan Abbott, who writes for the show, says that the decision to make Vince a passive observer was deliberate. One of the ideas that David Simon and co-creator George Pelecanos had from the start was that Vincent would not be the now standard TV anti-hero in the Tony Soprano Walter White tradition. That's why we see him, in certain ways, emasculated. His wife is cheating on him, he gets mugged, he is remarkably passive at a critical moment when a woman is in danger. One of the things we wanted to explore on The Deuce was the idea that in this world masculinity is very complicated, very fraught and fragile. Just as Delaney's intense masculinity threatens to bring Georgian society tumbling around him, so the fragile masculinity of The Deuce brings problems of its own. We see this especially in the pimps who are slowly losing their power as the season goes on and who often re-exert it in cruel, violent ways, says Abbott. There are no male heroes on The Deuce, or glamorous anti-heroes. Everyone on this show is pretty tarnished and real. A similar question, what happens when masculinity feels under threat? Drives David Fincher's slow-burning Mindhunter. Nominally the story of the origins of profiling, Mindhunter was in reality a clever deconstruction of both the notion of the profiler as all-knowing savant and a particular strain of toxic manhood. As the series progresses, so we see that, of the two FBI agents, it is the aloof Phil Holt McCallany who is deeply affected by the evil he encounters, whereas his earnest partner Holden Jonathan Groff finds himself increasingly enthralled to it. Holden isn't a hero, he's a warning, noted Angelica Jade Bastian in New York Magazine. It wasn't only examinations of toxic masculinity that hit hard this year. Abbott cites I Love Dick, Glow and American Vandal as examples of series that offer alternative models of masculinity, arguing that television is finally moving away from the notion that the only story worth telling is that of the powerful man behaving badly. Two of my favorite dramas of 2017 were The Leftovers and Halt and Catch Fire, says Mo Ryan, the TV critic for Variety. Both shows with male showrunners who realized they could tell even more compelling stories by putting women front and center. They have also realized that heroism comes in many guises. Broken, Jimmy McGovern's emotional, ultimately uplifting tale of a Catholic priest works largely because of the way it took Sean Bean, was most rugged of actors, and allowed him to be vulnerable. Bean's father Michael Kerrigan was a world away from the sword swingers for which the actor is best known. Instead, here was a quiet, gentle man, battling a sadness caused as much by what he had done to others as by what was done to him. It was a moving, vanity-free performance, and one that carried unpicked preconceptions of masculinity to tell us a story about an ordinary man who helped others almost